morning. This video is about a PTZ camera that I recently bought. It is labeled as an RSRteng, I believe that's a G at the end, DM-SCD405I5 AP-V04-E. Now we'll just cut to the chase here, and this is not made by RSRteng. It seems like their website only has something to do with IP camera testers, but they don't seem to manufacture this. It is actually made by Tianjin Huisin Vision Technology. So if you want to find information about it, you have to search for huisin and or the model number. I think you have to look for one without the E on it. I think E might mean it's an export or something like that. If you go to their website, there will be an option to see the website in English. If you choose English, you'll get a completely different website and you won't be able to find the camera. What you should do is open it in Chrome, and Chrome will offer to translate the website. There are no downloads available on the website. I do believe if you search for the model number that you can find a copy of the scanned, what do they call it, the quick installation guide. So let's see here. First thing is, this thing states that it is rated as IP66, waterproof against hose-directed water and falling drops of rain or snow. I would say maybe not. I would, if I was going to mount this outdoors, I would mount it under an eave where it couldn't get rained on. And you'll see here that I have covered the lights. I don't need them, and I don't want them, and I don't want them coming on for any reason. So I put a piece of aluminum foil on it and then some white masking tape. Let's see here. One of these is a microphone, but there's nothing that actually says that. And then on the back you have a speaker, and you have, and this is an access port for the SD card. When you go to take this off, these screws are going into plastic. They're not going into a brass insert, so they're going to be very tight. I suggest you hold the ball really tightly when you try to unscrew it, and do it carefully, because you could strip the head of these screws. They were in so tight. I'll show you a picture here of what it looks like inside, where you put the SD card, and supposedly there's a second SD card, a place for USB, but I don't see it anywhere on here. The other thing I noticed was that there's the ring that mounts to the ceiling, and then there's a bracket that mounts to, you can use to mount it to a wall. These protrusions right here are meant to make it so that it snaps in. I wanted mine to be easy to remove, so I shaved those down because it was very difficult to remove it without turning this. This part doesn't turn. This part turns, and this is the camera moves up and down. It is very easy to strip the gears or to move this, and here the gears coming loose, or they make a grinding noise, so don't do that. When you first turn it on, it will go through a process of rotating in one direction until it stops, and it keeps trying to rotate in that direction for quite a while, and then it will stop, and it will usually return to the position where it was before. I marked on here how much movement it has. This is the front of the camera, and it can move to looking this direction, and then all the way around to looking that direction. And it can look straight down, and as far as I can tell, it's 90 degrees level. It has two connectors, one for power and one for a RJ45 network cable, and a waterproof connector. And let's see, is there anything else I need to talk about? Oh, let's see here. Oh, although it does track, it'll record when it detects motion, it will not track the motion. Many cameras, they will follow a person. When it detects motion, it zooms in, centers the person, and then tries to follow them. This camera will not do that. It's also very slow. And also, I did not test the phone app. So this next part of the video is going to be me going through all the settings. It's rather long, and I would understand if you don't want to watch it. So anyways, on to the next part. Once you have your camera hooked up, you need to either go to the address of 192.168.0.123, or you have to use, if your network has DHCP, you have to figure out what IP address your camera is on. The app, I think there's an app or something that will find it. I didn't use that. Instead, I went into my DHCP and figured it out. I'll give you a little hint. The MAC address for the cameras start with F as in Frank 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. So that should narrow it down. The default username and password is admin and 123456. The first thing you have to do is choose English. It doesn't, let you know that unless you speak another language, you have no idea that this means choose your language. So you choose English, you log in. One thing to note is that on certain occasions, when I bring up the camera, the password is shown in clear text. And I'm not really sure why. Sometimes it goes away by itself. Sometimes you have to reboot the camera to get that to stop. So now we're logged into the camera, and you have a live, a playback, configuration, alarm, a log out. Your PTZ controls are over here. This down here changes the format of the screen. It goes from wide to more of a 4:3 aspect ratio. It's not accurate, and it often doesn't look right, but when it's all stretched out on a wide monitor, it looks better in this way. This will bring up your PTZ controls. There are additional controls in Internet Explorer. I won't be going over those. You also have a substream. Substream is a lower quality. There's some reasons for that, but off the top of my head, I don't know what they are. So, first thing I'll let you know is that sometimes if you change tabs, the video feed will no longer be live, and you can tell that because the time doesn't progress. So if I go to a new tab and I go back, you'll see that the video hasn't updated. So what I do is I click on Substream, and then go back to mainstream, and it works again. Let's see here. There is no help and no documentation for this camera other than the getting started guide that comes with it. There's no internal help in the web interface. Well, let's start going through the configurations. First thing you start out is camera and image, and you have all sorts of controls that mostly I didn't mess with. I changed my power frequency from 50 hertz to 60. Let's see. Horizontal flip and vertical flip. That's if you have your camera in a different orientation than with the camera hanging down. You can use it with the camera hanging up or with the camera on a wall. Defogging, I haven't messed with that. I don't know what WDR mode is. And I've left pretty much everything the same, or as it came. In my application, I did not want the lights to come on. When you first start the camera, it does something, it will flash, and it flashes very brightly, and I don't know why it flashes. But it will just, every once in a while, it'll flash. I don't know if it's supposed to do that. I don't know if it's because of motion sensing. So what I did was I changed the light mode to pure infrared. LED control to manual, LED brightness to off, light on illumination to 0.01. And then I covered the lights. Under the video section, you have a mainstream and a substream. From the factory, it came with H265 plus. I changed mine to 264 just for compatibility. It supposedly supports all of these resolutions. I've tried several of them, including 1080p. But when I put it on 1080p, it zoomed in on a section in the center of the screen. So it was just like a digital zoom. So it seems like the native resolution is one of these. So I've just left it on this one. Frame rate, I set it to 30 frames per second. It's somewhat in the middle. I left the bit rate to VBR, and I changed the quality to best. Left the bit rate as it's set and changed the profile to high. For the substream, I also set mine to 264 and a lower resolution. It seems that you have to have the substream on in order to set where it detects motion. It seems like it uses the substream to do that. So if you don't have it on, you can't set the motion. I checked on the audio, I set it to AAC, and in this case, the audio codec, it seems to be compatible with Windows. Of course, I don't know if I have special codecs on my computer because I have installed some in the past. It also, the MP4 codec, both the audio and video, you can, on my computer, you can play a recording and it doesn't require any conversion. I have a hikvision camera and I have to convert it with Handbrake. The sample rate and bit rate are locked. And the volume, I've left this alone. I don't actually care if it records audio because where I have it mounted, it would just record audio in my house. Snapshot, I believe that's like a screenshot. I left that alone. Network. When I first got into this, it seems like it was using DHCP, but then once it got an IP, it changed to static. So I had to change it to DHCP. I set up a reservation on my DHCP server, so I always know exactly where to go. Service ports, I just went with the defaults. My external service ports on my firewall are different from this. I'm using port forwarding. P2P, I'm not really sure what this is other than it's possible cloud storage. I don't use it. Connect check, I think this may have something to do with seeing if the camera can get to the internet. I've not tried it because I know it can get to the internet. And the pan tilt zoom, I believe this is used if you connect it with a serial controller, but the camera doesn't seem to have one. So I think it's pointless. Autofocus, I've left that with the defaults. Events and motion, you can set a schedule when you want it to detect motion. Mine are set all the time. And this is the detection area. You'll notice that it says only IE add motion area drag from left to right. So in Internet Explorer, you would click on the screen where you wanted to add an area that it would detect motion. I have set mine to detect motion across the entire screen. And if you want to remove an area, you drag from right to left. It's kind of a clunky way of doing it, but that's the way it is. You can change the number of blocks on the screen, and the max is 22 by 18. The sensitivity and threshold, there's no information on what is more sensitivity and what is less. I'm assuming that the higher the number, the more sensitive it is, but on my hikvision camera, it seems to be the opposite. So, but it seems to detect things just fine. You have to click trigger recording. If you don't click this, it won't record anything. Unless you wanted to record all the time. I think there's an option for that. We'll get to that. I/O. This seems like it should go to something that would trigger like a relay or something, but this camera has no connections for that. Intelligent detect. So this one was a little difficult to figure out in some ways. I have human detected. I had car and motorcycle, but I found that it would just identify random. I mean, it was good at detecting cars, definitely, but it would also detect like something else as a car. And I really only care if it detects humans. And draw rectangle in video. This, I believe, means that you can, it will draw a green rectangle around the item that it is detecting, and it flashes that rectangle. The detection rectangle blink is disabled, but it still blinks. Trigger audio. This will cause the camera to play an MP3 file. Reminder, you have entered the monitoring area. You can add your own MP3 files. And then trigger recording. Once again, you also have to turn this on or it won't record anything. And of course, you have to save whatever you changed. Storage. Now, mine is set up to use a memory card. I have a 32 gig memory card in it. It's all I had. Network storage. All this does is it comes up and says NF server store path. I could not find any information on the format of an NF server path. I found a bunch of stuff, but it was all conflicting and none of it worked. I know what the server name is. I know what the IP is. I've tried that. I know what the path is. I tried that. It just never recorded anything, and it never generated an error. And as far as I can tell, from the side of the storage, my NAS, it didn't even try. Allow overwrite is yes, and max record time is 10 minutes. Time lapse is disabled. Now, I don't know, I guess this is to save a little more time, but I didn't want it to time lapse. You can schedule the times it can record. And then the device manager, it has an SD card, and I'll insert a picture of what that looks like. It says that there's a second SD card, but there's no place to put one in. It shows an option to do a USB storage. There's no place to plug that in. And since I couldn't get it to connect to my NAS through NFS, it's not showing it. Here you can see user, you can add users. Default language is English. These are the settings I used so that it sets the time. The time.windows.com seems to be reliable. You can factory reset it from inside, but if you forget your password, or if you got one of these and it has a password on it, it's not the default, I think you're screwed. There doesn't seem to be any way to get it to reset by pushing a button or something. You can reboot it. Auto maintain, I'm not exactly sure what this is. I'm assuming it'll update the firmware. When I plugged it in, when you turn it on, it gives you a date and a time. I've set the date and time to like, a minute or two in the future and waited, and nothing appeared to happen. And in here you can update your firmware, but you can't get it. And this is the version of whatever's on the camera. The web plugin is used for Internet Explorer. It's an executable. You can just click on this and it downloads it. I don't know where it's downloading it from. It does take a while, and it seems to sometimes have trouble downloading, so it may be going to a server externally. So my recommendation is that if you get one of these, even if you don't plan on using it, that you download it and then save it, because it's anytime the web plugin download could not work. So let's go back to live. And you have a speed control. This is 10. And this is 5. I really can't see a difference. Zoom. This is 4x zoom. It does supposedly have digital zoom. but digital zoom is garbage, so I don't even use it. To set a prefix, I have 3 presets. To set a preset, you just type a number, it only accepts numbers, and click plus to add it. If you change your preset, you just type that same number in and click add. The alarm function, anytime something goes in front of the screen or it detects somebody, this will flash red, and you click on it to see what the alarm is. Of course, log out logs out. Playback, if what you see here is you have a 24-hour, and if you click on a red line, it will start playing at that mark. Well, I'm not going to do that. You can look at previous days. And you can change it to only see like the last 2 hours, the last hour, or 30 minutes. Kind of spreads it out, because if you get a lot, if you're in a high traffic area, you're getting a lot of hits. Oh, and then to download, you get a file list. Click on file list. You kind of have to guess. I mean, it doesn't show the date. You have to know that you're on the current date or the date you selected, and then you pick the time. And in my case, it's military time. So if I want this, I click download, and then it just downloads it. Download is pretty quick. So a couple more things before I go. Let's see here. Number one is, if you want to connect to, or you want to see a RTSP stream, because it supports RTSP, you can do that with VLC, but it doesn't give you the stream name. On some cameras, you just put the IP address, and that's enough. Our VLC can find it. In this case, you have to give it a complete stream name, and that is this. It's RTSP : / the IP address of your camera, / 554, that's the RTSP port number, / capital PSIA, / streaming, / channels, / 101. And then if you have, it should authenticate, it should ask you for a username and password. And if you did it right, your VLC will show you the screen without having to log into the web page. I have had a couple of instances when I was in Playback, and I played a video, and then I tried to stop it, but it seems like it was still playing, though I couldn't see it playing. And I tried to play another video, and it was telling me I had to wait for the other player to stop, or to stop the other player, and I could not get it to stop. So what I did was I closed the browser and reopened it, and that worked. This will work with a Hikvision program, the what is it called? IVMS 4200 client, and it should work with any other ONVIF client. I believe that's about it. So anyways, thanks for watching.